In the Philippines, fortunes don't just vanish. They hide, they wait, and sometimes they come back to power wearing a familiar name. Imelda Marcos didn't only collect jewels, she collected pathways for money to keep breathing long after the palace doors shut on the family in 1986. Billions were said to be missing. Decades later, their son sits in the presidency. So the real question is simple and urgent. How did the Marcos family fortune survive all that time in the shadows, and why does it still matter right now? After the People Power Uprising, most Filipinos assumed the story would end the usual way. A dictator falls, the money is frozen, and the family fades. Agencies were built for that exact purpose. The newly formed Commission on Good Government went hunting, and Swiss authorities froze accounts. But what looked like a straight cleanup hid a nasty surprise. The cash wasn't just in bags. It lived on paper, in aliases, foundations, shell companies, and artworks that could be shipped under a false name as easily as a suitcase. That's where Imelda's touch shows. The family opened Swiss accounts using the aliases William Saunders and Jane Ryan, then nested money inside private foundations with harmless names: Azio, Avertina, Maller, Zandi, Caris, structures designed to outlast headlines and even court orders. There was also Arelma, a shell company with a New York brokerage account that turned into a legal maze spanning continents. And while the world zoomed in on the shoes and the gowns, crates of paintings and jewelry, mobile vaults, moved through airports and storage rooms. The lesson lands fast. Jewelry sparkles, but paper shields. If the wrappers were that strong, how did any funds ever come back? The answer is that patience worked both ways. Through the 1990s and 2000s, the Philippines clawed back hundreds of millions from Swiss foundations as court rulings stacked up. Yet even as one tunnel closed, others stayed open. The Arelma account sat entangled in litigation for years. Proof that time isn't just a healer, it's a strategy. And while those cases crawled forward, the family reassembled its base at home, which leads to the next problem. It wasn't just about keeping money safe, it was about keeping enough influence to make that money useful again. One telling moment arrived in New York, 2013. Imelda's former secretary, Vilma Bautista, was convicted for trying to sell a Monet and other artworks that investigators tied back to Imelda's collection. It wasn't just a sensational headline about a famous painting. It showed the spine of the system. Art as currency, moved across borders, and converted when needed, with old loyalties doing the paperwork. The point isn't that a single Monet changed a campaign. It's that this is how a fortune behaves when it wants to be invisible, but still work on command. Courts inside the Philippines kept grinding as well. In 2018, a special anti-graft court found Imelda guilty on counts tied to moving public money into Swiss foundations during the 1970s. She posted bail and appealed, and the case continued in that long, familiar rhythm. Around the same time, the government inched closer to final forfeiture of major jewelry collections, with international auction houses valuing the Hawaii and Malacañang sets in the tens of millions. Each ruling had two faces: an official victory for recovery, and a quiet reminder that the bulk of the system foundations, nominees, and aging paper was built to survive the long haul. By the 2010s, the old Swiss foundation model had a modern cousin, the family office. Instead of numbered accounts, you had trust companies in Hong Kong or Singapore, private bankers in Zurich, and British Virgin Islands shells on retainer, all offering the same promise with nicer carpet discretion, tax efficiency, and control without fingerprints. Global document leaks didn't name every player, but they sketched the wider landscape. Journalists mapped webs tying Philippine political clans to offshore service providers. And you could see how a blueprint drawn in the 1970s still guided money in the 2010s. When you can route funds through 3 jurisdictions in a day, you can buy time, shape narratives, and outweigh prosecutions. Now, if the courts have scored wins, and the dynasty has scored bigger ones, where does that leave the last stubborn caches? Some are in storage, some are in court, and some probably changed hands 3 owners ago. The next battleground isn't just a vault or a gallery, it's the calendar. Statutes expire, witnesses age, and archives get reorganized. So the story keeps moving, and here's the hinge we'll push on next. With the family back in the palace, does the trail go cold, or does old paperwork finally meet a modern data leak that gives the chase one more jolt?